Welcome to Chanel's reality. I'm Chanel, and this is my reality. Welcome to Chanel's reality. I'm Chanel, and this is my reality.
Hey everybody, welcome to Chanel. This is my reality. No, I always say I'm Chanel and this is my reality. I've been meaning to come on here and talk to my peeps, my Chanel's angels. Okay, that's what I'm calling my peeps now, Chanel's angels. I wanted to talk about a topic that is very heavy or could be very heavy. That topic is SA. And what happens once you've been violated in such an egregious way? Let me say this first. Trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. But I like to have honest conversations. If you're new here, thank you so much for, coming to Chanel's reality. I appreciate your support. Welcome. And if you're returning to Chanel's reality, I still appreciate your support. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. So just hitting that like button, hitting the notification button. What are the other buttons? Hit all my buttons. And so you can be a part of the, Chanel's Angels. So anyways, so I've been having kind of I know it sounds dreadful, but I would say last 5 years are kind of rough, we all have our stuff, work, home, love life, kids, money, you name it. We all have to deal with some level of it at some point. And sometimes you get to a point where you like hit a wall. And I feel like listen, I feel like somebody take me to the damn wall or I don't even understand it. Some days I'll just be like, really? All right, guy, whatever. Do what you do. You know better than me. That's all I can say. But yeah, I've had a not such a charmed life. For some reason, people think that I have some sort of, I don't know, fairy tale world of life. I'm sure it's just, the Leo thing. I'm just kind of, what's the right word? We just like to be at the top. I'm just top tier. It's just, that's what it is. And that's what it's going to always give. I'm just top tier. Wouldn't care if I wore Chanel or don't. She's going to be flying, she going to be flying anything. Plus, whatever, if I put on Chanel, listen, Louis Prada, baby, I got a lot of, wherever I'm seated is the baddest place in the room. Let's just be very clear about that. No, out here being obnoxious. Let me make sure everybody can hear. I don't know what YouTube be doing over here sometimes. So I have to go over here to my other device to make sure that I'm live. And it's weird too, because sometimes I'll be live and YouTube just doesn't show that you're live. It's like, how dare you? I think that has something to do with like their algorithm. I don't know. But I'm going to go to my channel now and I'm going to see it. It does say I'm live. Their algorithm. Okay. I don't know. There we go. So it is live, but I don't know how YouTube, I don't know their algorithm. Anyway. So yeah, I said I want to come on here and talk about life. Talk about really coping mechanisms for things that are very troubling, very, what's the word I was looking for? I said it earlier. Can be very triggering for a lot of people. So if talking about SA or trafficking or anything like that, molestation or the R word, all of that, then listen, I'm just honest. It's my opinion. It's Chanel's reality. It's all in, it's all alleged. It's all the things I have to say. It's all for entertainment purposes only. It's all alleged. Okay. Um. So yeah. So it seems like I've been having a series of unfortunate situations. I'm like, it just feels like, what else? Like, you know what I'm saying? You ever been to a point in your life, you just like, what else? What else you got? Because it's like, how come this one person? I'm sorry, I'm eating grits. Whatever. Don't judge me. I got them from the Waffle House. And we know they ain't gonna pass inspection. They not, but what they gonna do is give me an all-star breakfast. Okay. And let me just say, that all-star breakfast used to be $6 or something like that. Why it's $12? Mm-hmm. But let me tell you something. I don't care. They could put it up so $25. I'm still gonna get it. I mean, it's the all-star breakfast. Where else can you go and watch the people cooking? You could, I mean, I guess you could go to Benihana's. Of course. Or any type of like hibachi grill. Carrabba's. You can go there and you can watch them make food. It's just something about being able to see what the hell they doing in their kitchen. I'm just saying. Anyway, back to the topic. So, in general, I am a very happy, joyful, bleeding heart liberal who wants to save everybody. That's kind of Chanel in a nutshell, for the most part. I mean, no, okay, I'm that, and I'm pretty much sure that I'm right about everything, mostly. I'm constantly trying to help somebody. That is just my life mission, especially people who are at a disadvantage of some sort. Have a caring heart, love to laugh. Why do I feel like an ad for like a love lover's co-op or shit? I don't know. But I do think because I present the way I present to people when they see me, it's almost like they don't believe I am who I am, you know? And then at some point they realize, yeah, she's really genuine. That's who she is, you know? But it takes a minute. But some people, the reason I even brought that up because I'll mention things like I know I'm not for everybody, and I know everybody ain't gonna understand, but I'll just mention stuff, talk about stuff that's like in my real life. And then people, not all people, but some people, it seems like they put me on a pedestal or something like that. And they think I'm this, I don't know, like, I don't know. It's interesting. They hold me, the best way I can describe it is I'm on some sort of pedestal that I didn't put myself on. Now, let's be clear. I did say I'm top tier at all times, except for in the wig store. You can't judge nobody in the hair, not the hair salon, but well, you can't judge them in there either. But the beauty supply store, listen, no judgment zone. Okay. Anyway, and so I've noticed over the years, people they'll make comments or whatever, or they have this perception in their head that I'm some rich lady, and I'm not. Let's be very clear. Because if I was, I would not be staying in Houston, Texas. Let's be very clear. My ass would be somewhere in the Bahamas on one of them islands that might disappear if we don't get our global, whatever it is, warming thing under control. I'm just saying. But all jokes aside, I wanted to come on here and speak about something. Like I said, it's very serious. It's a very heavy topic, but being a person who has worked in sex crimes, my whole entire adult life, it could change you. Meaning you're presented with so much of these, situations where people, it's like, how do you wake up and say, you know what? Today is the day that I'm gonna, violate whoever because I can. How does that happen? How does a man or woman uh wake up and decide, you know what? I'm just gonna go and be so. I'm gonna sexually assault a 5-year-old. I just won't ever understand it, but I don't understand it either for the 25-year-old or the 30-year-old or whatever it is that you experience some sort of sexual assault. And it's interesting to me, and this is why I bring this topic up because I fully understand. You know what I mean? Like from the perspective of a victim and from the perspective of working in courts with children and families who are people who've been sexually assaulted. And it always blows my mind that people hyper focus on what the victim was doing. Was he or she not wearing the right clothes? Was he or she in the wrong neighborhood? Was he or she, why she went to that room at this time of night and all this kind of stuff. And it's nonsense. It's nonsense. All it does is re-victimize the victim. You coming and being taking the amount of strength of Job to finally get your life together to say this person did this and I'm going to speak it out loud. And then all that happens is, oh well, if that person's wealthy or that person's a person of the community, and they give away money or they're the star athlete, whatever. People will find a reason to walk around in that brown paper bag of I don't believe you. And what if she did this and let the due process take place? But they don't have shit to say about the perpetrator. They're going to let that play out in court. It ain't changing over here. I believe victims. Pure point blank, end of story. And the reason for that is outside of my own personal situations like that. But most of the women, almost every single one that I know, have been sexually assaulted. So I'm going to go with the stats are right. Go around your family. Count off the women 1, 2, 3, 4. At least one of them has been sexually assaulted or will be in that time. Just saying. And and then the ones that like work against their own best interest, you are so hyper focused on making sure, quote unquote, we don't tear down some man because he's rich or because he's black or because he's the pastor or because he's fill in the blank. We don't want to tear his good name down. So you'd rather have this person in your community, at your child's school, your next door neighbor or whomever else. You'd rather let the what is it called? Justice system take its role. So okay, I understand that. I do understand that. But I only understand it from the perspective of if you're not going to blame the victim first. If you want to say let the story play out or let it play out in court and wait for justice, and I'm all in agreement for that. But why we can't do that with the victim too? Why do we have 1,000 questions for the victim and almost none for the perpetrator? With the perpetrator, we gonna wait and see till the trial over or whatever. But with the victim, we're gonna start immediately with our investigation into what that person was doing to get raped or whatever, molested. I don't really care. It's annoying to me. It is so annoying. And what's more annoying is it almost feels like, as an advocate for victims, it almost feels like I can't understand how people's minds can't understand. They can't even, it's like it doesn't even occur to them that something like this is a problem and it is happening all over the whole entire world. And people are still making excuses. It's just, like I said, it's beyond me. I can't figure it out. I don't understand. I can never, I don't know. Maybe because I'm a victim. I don't understand it. But tonight's topic is about, because I would love, and I think I might do like a 3-part series on this because I'm just very interested in people's thoughts. But um, oh, and shout out to my little sis Carmen. Happy birthday, 4th of July, baby, in the house. Um, yeah, so I want to have a little, I think I want to have at least a 1 or 2-parter of about this topic specifically, because I've never been in this situation until now where the perpetrator, at least one of the perpetrators in my life, when I was probably since I was like 6 or 7 years old, I would say, is whenever I could remember the longest. the first few times of being sexually assaulted as a child. Probably somewhere in between 5 and 7 is what I would say. The thing that often confuses me is the people who will say, well, if this person was getting money, or this person wanted that lifestyle, or whatever it is, justifying the act for whatever reason, making it seem as if that's what the victim deserved. He or she shouldn't have been doing this. Instead of the fucking perpetrator shouldn't be violating people. Like, it just, I can't. This is why I'm just like, listen, let me go back to, how you have on your computer, you type on, click on something, and then you get this like notification of like all in big red. This could be something harmful to your computer. Do you want to take yourself back where you came from? That's what it feels like. I'm just like, okay, so I've been on this part of the internet and I can't understand it. I just need to go back to safety. Go back to where the Kim Pyres of the world and the, oh, what's her name? She's one of my faves. Oh God, I can't think of her name. The Ashley, what is her name? What, I can't think of her name, but I'll think of it and I'll say it later. But like the memes, the make it make senses of the world, these people who have more than 5 brain cells, and they understand someone's, could be they could be objective and don't have to be rude and mean and all that kind of stuff. Whereas other parts of the internet, that's exactly what it is. It's just like, damn, what part of the internet is this? What did I stumble into? Child. I'm sure whatever I've stumbled into now is there's something else that's 100 times worse. So I don't even want to know what that part of the internet looked like. But so it's like I have this dilemma, right? That I never thought of. But it's like, what if the person who violated you lived in your home? What if it was your dad or your brother or the cousin that stayed with y'all for that year or whomever? That person now has passed away. Do you go and attend that person's funeral if they're your family? What do you do? Because I would say, in general, most people are going to choose to not stop by the perpetrator's, funeral. But if the perpetrator was your dad, do you go to his funeral? Or your mom? Do you go to that funeral? Do they deserve it? Is that going to re-traumatize you? Lots of questions to think about. How does how do you feel about the people who know or knew that you were being violated in that way? Didn't remove the perpetrator, didn't protect you from the perpetrator, didn't believe you. Instead, they wanted the perpetrator to stay around and keep perpetrating. How on earth do people come up with this? So let's just say that's the situation. They don't protect you. They don't make they don't remove the threat. They let them babysit you or whatever it is. Leave you alone with this person, especially after you know. How do you do that? That's a part of the world that I'll never understand. There is no way in hell, none, that I'm going to leave my child or children with a perpetrator, knowingly with a perpetrator. One thing if you don't know, this person seems trustworthy, whatever. They've never given you no cause to like be like, um, but then you find out what's happened. How do you then say I'm still gonna stay with this person? Like I cannot. These are the things. Is why I say take me back to safety, because I just be like, people will find an excuse. They will find an acceptable excuse to have that person around. Ain't that much love, love in whatever you want to call it in the world. Mm-mm. Ain't gonna be able to do it. Nope. Ain't better do it. Mm-mm. But like I said, the dilemma is this person violated you once, twice, 100 times, whatever it is. But now they've passed. Maybe they had cancer. Maybe they had a heart attack. Maybe they had, um, who knows, whatever. Maybe they got in a car crash. What do you do then? Ooh, child, I'm gonna get to sleep after I do this, after we, listen to some of these stories. So I have a TED talk that I want you guys to listen to about forgiveness and a few other things. So let me just share my screen. And is it this one? Okay, yeah. So this is a TED talk. I put the link in the description. So if you want to go watch it later, you can, or come back to it. The links are in the description. But let's just get started. The title of this one is Unlocking Freedom with Forgiveness. And the guy's name is Derek Laher. So
when I was 5, my parents divorced. My mother, having been close to the mental health profession earlier in her life, decided to take me to a child psychologist to help cope with the transition. I struggled greatly in the beginning, adjusting to life outside of the blended family that I had once grown up in. Like many children of divorce, I began to experience adverse symptoms relatively quickly. Just give Derek time, everyone said. He'll adjust. But after a couple of months, things weren't better. In fact, they were much worse. Still, even my doctors, even my child psychologist were convinced that given a little more time and a little more therapy, I'd be okay. Everything that Derek is experiencing, they said, is completely normal. But what they and everyone else who knew and loved me did not know was that at that exact same time, right underneath their noses, I was being sexually abused. After my parents' divorce, I was allowed to spend every other weekend at my father's. In fact, it was during these weekend visits where my abuse began, not at the hands of my father, but at the hands of somebody that I knew and loved and trusted. The thing to keep in mind about sexual predators is that they'll do anything to stay concealed, anything. They'll lie to you, they'll intimidate you, and they'll threaten you. In my case, all three of those things were true. I was told that if I disclosed my abuse, that my parents wouldn't love me anymore. I was threatened and intimidated. But none of those threats were as effective as this one, that if I told anyone what was happening to me, that Santa Claus wouldn't come visit me that year, and everyone would know what a bad little boy I had been. And so, like any 5-year-old would, I stayed quiet. Months passed, and I desperately wanted to tell somebody, anybody, what was happening to me. But I also wanted Santa Claus to come down that chimney. The following year, the abuse continued, and as Christmas approached, I just couldn't take it anymore. Riddled with guilt and shame, I found myself unable to sleep. This, I resolved, would be the year that I just wouldn't get any presents. I had to tell somebody. I remember waking up with a pit in my stomach, peeling off the covers, getting out of bed, and tiptoeing downstairs to find my mom alone on the sofa watching television. She took one look at me and knew that something wasn't right. "What's wrong?" she asked, and I burst into tears and began to tell her everything. Now, keep in mind that when a child does disclose sexual abuse, they often won't use those terms because they don't know what terms to use. Instead, what they'll do sometimes is describe in rather graphic detail everything that's happening to them. And so that's exactly what I did as my mother sat and listened in horror. I can only imagine what that must have been like for her. I don't remember much else about that night, but I do remember this, that my mom did everything that someone in her position should have done. She listened to me, she believed me, and she told me that there was nothing that I could ever do to lose her love. Best of all, she let me know that Santa Claus was definitely going to come visit me that year. And I remember feeling relieved, like a 1,000,000-pound weight had been lifted off my chest, relieved that all of this was finally over. But what I could never have known is that that night was just the beginning. Because disclosing my abuse was the equivalent of pulling the pin on a grenade and rolling it into the middle of what little family I had left. Complete and total destruction. Not everyone in my family believed me, it turned out. And as time passed, things got worse for me. I began to experience adverse symptoms of sexual abuse, now commonly referred to as PTSD. I developed an eating disorder, an obsessive compulsive disorder, insomnia, night terrors, a nervous tic. And everyone kept telling me that what had happened to me wasn't my fault. And I kept thinking that if none of this were my fault, then why did it feel like it was? I mean, shouldn't all of these things be happening to the person who had done this to me? I resolved even at that early age, and I remember thinking even back then that no matter what, I could never and I would never forgive the person who would sexually abuse me. Just look at all of the damage they had caused. As I grew into adolescence and entered into high school, things got much worse. I began participating in risky behavior, and I started doing things that I thought would help other people to like me more, to only wind up hurting myself. I was in constant survival mode, and it was beginning to take its toll. And this was never more apparent than during my very first semester, when away at college and away from the few friends and family that I had grown to rely on for the very first time, I found myself completely and utterly alone. And I sank into a deep and dark depression, one so bad I thought that there would be no escape. And so it was then, during my very first semester away at school, that I decided to do the unthinkable and end my suffering. I remember sitting in class one day when the thought came to me, this would be the day. And I remember getting up and leaving class, going back to my dorm room to do something that there was no return from, to end my own life. And when I got outside, nothing externally seemed to match everything that I was feeling internally. Instead, the sun shone down amazingly, the sky was a brilliant shade of blue, and nothing just made sense. And with every step I took toward my dorm, I just had so much trouble coming to grips with the decision that I had made.
So I find this fascinating because I have felt that way before. I've definitely felt that way before. And in general, I'm a very happy-go-lucky. Listen, as long as the sun is shining, what could be worse? Like what could I really be mad about? Like, it's kind of my take on life. You don't know when it's going to be over. You don't know when it's going to take a turn for the good or the bad. You just don't know. You just got to be around. Honestly, tonight was one of those nights where I just was like, listen, I don't have any more room for negativity, for people being mean, for my life being what it is, where, this person violated me when I was such a young girl, and now they're no longer here. But people are like, please go to the funeral. Please go. You need to go. One of my cousins was begging me today on the phone. Well, really last night, but it was still today. Well, I guess it's a different day now. It's Friday, but last night he called, my cousin did, and was like, yeah, I'm so sorry to tell you this, this person has died, but we really need you to participate. And I have to say, I've only had I got this phone call probably like 3 in the morning. I was at the ER, by the way, because I had some other health issues. But anyways, and so that's kind of been rolling around in my brain. What should I do? Should I go? Should I go to a funeral of the perpetrator? What do you do? I can tell you this, I have no idea. I got all these fancy college degrees and licensing for this and that, and I don't know what to do. I literally, earlier tonight, I was just, it's like I hadn't been crying, even though I knew this person was not going to wake up. They're in a coma. They haven't been responsive, so they're not going to wake up. I've been feeling away, like I'm sad about it, but I'm indifferent as well because in my mind, at least, you're a savage. Period. Black, white, green, orange, I don't give a shit. You're a savage. If you're molesting girls or whomever it is you're putting your hands on, a little nasty ass, disgusting human being. What do you do if the person that has violated you lives in your house? No one knows what they're doing. Because you're 6, 7 years old. Who's going to believe the 6 or 7 year old? Plus, the 6 or 7 year old doesn't even realize it's wrong yet. They usually don't realize that immediately. That's why they have something called grooming. So I'm going to tickle you here or, corner you, whatever it is. At first, a lot of times, these perpetrators want to be nice to you. It's like they have levels of grooming. Oh, this time I'll just, accidentally, touch on your boob or, tell you to get undressed. They need to see something, whatever it is. My perpetrator would do the worst. Like he would, or one of them, I'll say it like that. He would do stuff like, we're going to watch a movie, right? And what kid doesn't want to watch a movie, and have a good time, whatever. But then he would pick like a scary movie to show a 5-year-old who we all know is going to be scared after they watch that movie. You don't have to be 5 to be scared. I'm just saying. That's what's going to happen. And what 5-year-old, after watching the Exorcist or some crazy movie like that, is going to want to sleep alone by themselves? Not one. So that was his way of like making sure that I, was going to feel protected, but then violate you. I just don't get it. I don't get it morally, but I also don't get it logically. Why on earth would you be doing that to a 5 or 7, 8, 9-year-old? Why? I don't think I've ever really asked these questions before in my life. You think about certain things and try to make sense of it, but like last night I was thinking to myself, I was like, I don't understand, and I don't know why this suddenly came to me, but it was like, I don't understand how, because this person wasn't an adult yet. So adults or not though, adult, they know what they're doing unless they have some sort of, intellectual disability or something. They may not understand good and bad and all that kind of stuff, but, or social norms, they wouldn't understand it. Some of them, not all of them. So it's just in my mind, I really last night was thinking about, I'm like trying to understand a scenario where a grown man sees a 7-year-old sleeping and they get a hard on to go and violate the 7-year-old. Like, I can only describe that as a sociopath, someone who has zero empathy for whatever it is that they're doing to violate this other person. Because believe it or not, most people get violated, harmed, drugged, deleted is the word that they use on the internet now. They get all of these things from people they love or who they thought loved them. But last night in my mind, I don't know, that question just was bothering me. It's like things I never really thought about because I have like I don't even know. I've always obviously known these things have happened, and these things happen. I'm a normal human being, and I've gone to school, and you put two and two together. But I don't know why it took me all this time to kind of be like, why on earth would you? What? So, because my thing is, even if you started the question in your head, shouldn't the questions immediately, rapidly be coming through? Like, I'm saying for the perpetrator, why would you do that? Why would you choose a child? And that's why I always say sexual assault is never about sex. It's always about power and control. People don't want to believe that, but it's the truth. Because if you think about it, by the way, this Jenny's gooey butter cake is everything. It's given me my whole life. I don't know. Because even if you think that, let's just say your body's having a response because this is what you're attracted to. And again, I don't understand that because I'm not attracted to children. So like I won't ever be able to put two and two together. But I'm saying, just for the purpose of this video we're watching, it's like, how do you get there from the thought to being, possibly caught or whatever, but you're still gonna go through with it. And you're a man who has a heart on for your daughter or for your sister. Like what the it's just like it's uncomprehensible comprehensible to me. And like I said, it's a plot. They'll be offering up their services. Oh, I'll babysit. I'm sure you will. But anyway, let's keep going.
And I was overcome with emotion and overwhelmed by the thought of what I was about to do. And so I sat down outside at a table and chair in a common area, and I buried my face in my hands, and I did the only thing that in that moment I could think to do, which was pray to a God I wasn't even sure heard me, to a God I wasn't even sure existed. And I cried out internally, and I began to beg God that if he were listening, to just send me one friend, just one person who would listen to me, who would understand what I was going through, because I was about to do something that there was no coming back from. And it was about that time that I heard a voice behind me say, "Excuse me." And thinking that the voice wasn't meant for me, I heard it again, louder, "Excuse me," until finally I turned around and found a man standing before me that I had never seen before in my life. And he smiled at me and asked if he could sit down. And in true introverted fashion, I looked around at all of the other tables and chairs and thought, you could literally sit anywhere.
Yep.
But in true introverted fashion, I simply said, okay. And so he sat down and he began to unpack his book bag, and he kept smiling at me. And what he said next changed the course of my life forever. He said, "Look, please don't get up. Please don't leave. What I'm going to say next is going to sound crazy. Don't freak out. But I was just walking across campus and I noticed you sitting by yourself. And I felt like God said, maybe that person needs a friend. So I thought that I would come over here and check on you. I have just one question for you. Are you okay?" The answer, of course, was no. And so I froze, stunned by his words, because there is absolutely no way he could have known. Instead, we talked for hours. And needless to say, that day, I did not make a decision to end my own life. I made a friend named Mark. I would spend the next few years of my life healing, going through school. I would come to faith. I joined and even hosted a weekly Bible study on campus. I started taking care of myself mentally, spiritually, physically. I began seeing a therapist again for my past abuse, and best of all, I started dating somebody, and things were really looking up. I mean, I was leaving my tormented past behind me and embracing all the possibilities of the future, and everything was going great until one day. One day, a chance encounter brought me face to face again with a person who had sexually abused me nearly 20 years earlier. Standing in front of them again after all of that time, all of the pain, all of the anger, all of the rage came flooding back, overwhelming each of my senses, doing everything to keep me chained to my 5-year-old self. I had had nearly 2 decades to think about what I would say to this person if I ever saw them again. And believe me when I tell you that I was well practiced. I could tell them how they had robbed me of my childhood. I could tell them how they had stripped me of my innocence. I could tell them how because of what they had done, I wasn't sure that anyone would ever really love me. And I could tell them how because of what they had done, I wasn't sure that I could ever love myself. I could tell them how because of what they had done, one day I had nearly ended my own life. I could tell them a lot of things. And in that moment, I realized I had a massive decision to make. Let go on a tirade full of all the hatred and anger and bitterness that I had carried with me for nearly 20 years, or I could do something different. I could say something different. I could offer forgiveness now. The same forgiveness that was offered me when I came to faith. And so that day, I did something that I never thought that I would be capable of doing. I got right up in my abuser's face. I looked them right in their eyes, and I simply said, I forgive you. I forgive you. I remember it well because that was the day that I finally gained my freedom. I became free. That's what happened. Here's what didn't happen. All of that anger, all of that pain, all of that rage didn't just disappear. Nothing changed in that moment, really, except for this feeling that all of the emotional weight and trauma that I had carried with me into adulthood now somehow felt different. It felt lighter. And as time passed, I quickly realized that I no longer had to get over what happened to me because now I could get through it. And that's when I had a revelation that forgiveness wasn't necessarily for the person that I had forgiven. Forgiveness was for me, because forgiveness is a key that unlocks a cell in which you were prisoner the entire time. Some of you have been hurt so badly by others in your past, you're probably thinking that there's no way that you could ever forgive them. I understand. I was there because I didn't understand what real forgiveness was. And if, like me, you're not sure what real forgiveness is, we can start by examining what real forgiveness is not. Because forgiveness is not a pass. Forgiveness is not condoning another person's actions. Forgiveness doesn't mean that what they did didn't matter or didn't hurt, because it did matter and it did hurt. Forgiveness doesn't mean removing a healthy boundary and allowing a toxic, manipulative, or even dangerous person back into your life. Forgiveness doesn't mean removing accountability or responsibility, and forgiveness doesn't mean that it won't still hurt sometimes. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you won't still have what happened to you. Forgiveness just means that what happened to you won't have you. Forgiveness is often a gradual and ongoing process, one that may need to be repeated multiple times, even if just to yourself. Did you know that the other person doesn't even need to be present in order to be forgiven? In cases where that person is too toxic or dangerous, or maybe they've moved on or even passed away, they don't even need to know that you've forgiven them, just as long as you do. Because the reality is that forgiveness can be just as much, if not more so, for you than for anybody. And it's okay for forgiveness to be about you, because forgiveness gives you freedom. Freedom from the one who hurt you. We often talk about the transformative power of pain, so we cannot forget about the transformative power of forgiveness, because that's what forgiveness does. It transforms you from the incarcerated into the liberated. But if you're hell-bent on revenge, If you're dead set on carrying resentment, just know that unforgiveness is like taking a poison pill and waiting for the other person to die. You'll only end up hurting yourself. And you deserve to be free. So every day that you carry around unforgiveness is another day added to a prison sentence that you don't deserve. As one Hiroshima bomb survivor put it, the best way to avenge your enemies is by learning to forgive. I've forgiven multiple people in my life multiple times for a multitude of things. And so it may surprise you to know that of all of the people that I've ever forgiven, my abuser included, there was still one person from whom I continually withheld forgiveness. And that person was me. Now, make no mistake, I did not need to forgive myself for my sexual abuse. What happened to me was not my fault. I was the victim. But as a survivor, I needed to forgive myself for years of self-doubt. I needed to forgive myself for years of negative self-talk. I needed to forgive myself for years of thinking that I would never be good enough. I needed to forgive myself for years of thinking that I would never be enough. Because the reality is that I am enough. And if I was capable of God's love and forgiveness, then surely I was capable of my own. So one day, I looked in the mirror and I forgave the person who had suffered most through all of this. Me. Today, my life is dramatically different. I no longer live in shame because there is nothing for me to be ashamed of. I live proudly as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I've been married to my beautiful bride for nearly 15 years, and together we have an amazing 10-year-old daughter. I'm a husband and I'm a father. Those things did not come easily to me. I had to fight to be successful at them. But I stand before you today as living proof of the transformative power of forgiveness. And today I get to use my voice to raise awareness for childhood sexual abuse and sexual assault. And today I get to use my voice to lend volume to survivors who might be suffering in silence. And if you're a survivor of childhood sexual abuse or sexual assault like me, just know that what happened to you is not your fault. If you're a survivor like me, know that I am safe to talk to, that I believe you and I believe in you. If you're a survivor like me, know that you are loved, you are enough, and you are never alone. There is help, there is hope, and there is healing. A life beyond measure is possible, and it can start today with forgiveness, because forgiveness is ultimately a choice, one that you get to make. So when faced with that decision, what will you choose? Will you choose to forgive? Thank you.
You know, how do I get back to where I was? Okay, here we go. I don't know that I've ever thought about forgiving the perpetrator over the years. I don't know if I thought, oh, I need to forgive the person for this heinous thing. I just can't recall doing that or asking myself that. But I definitely moved forward. You know, one of the things, like with what happened to me, if you go back in the video, if you're just joining, I was speaking earlier about how the perpetrator in my sexual assault, at least one of my sexual assault situations, they would do things very calculated, very, very calculated, for a child my age, somewhere between 4 and 7. I can't remember exactly. But I don't know if I ever thought, So what I was gonna say about is, like, I told one person in my family, and then they decided, this happened years ago, but they decided to give my phone number to the perpetrator. I know they knew. I told them. Why would you do that exactly? That's one of those things that I don't understand. Like, why would you do that? It's such a betrayal. And You know what's crazy? It was like the moment I had said, I'm gonna move on. I was having a good day about something. I was trusting someone to do something. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I just do remember being very sad because I was just like, if I told you this person is the perpetrator and that person called you and you decide, oh, I'll give you her number. Why would you do that exactly? I wouldn't give a shit what the purpose was. Mm-mm. It's like your rapist showing up and being like, "Hey, can I have the person I already raped? Can you give me her address?" It just enraged me. I'm just like, why would you do that? And I just remember there's two times in my life where I just felt very crippled and just my little heart was shattered when that happened for sure. Um, and then there was another serious situation where with the whenever I decided that I was gonna call, like the police, and I had decided to myself, like, all these years I've been kind of like never told anyone because it was just so embarrassing to me personally. And, like I always say, the people will victim shame and all the things that society does to try to protect perpetrators is beyond me, but they do. Um, so that happened, and then there was another time when so they gave that person my phone number, and there was something else. I had gotten around to, like, okay, not really sure about this particular thing. Oh, that's what it was. I had decided that I was gonna tell on this person. I'm just telling you because you could possibly be still violating other people, but I was just too scared. Didn't really want to, ruffle the feathers. This person is like mythical. It's like star basketball player, star baseball player, ladies' man type thing. Just loved on by the whole family, just like a golden boy. And I think on some level, I didn't want to mess that up for that person. Because what I do know is there's plenty of people that do not believe victims. And those plenty of people are right in your family. I'm telling you this because I know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of shit I don't know. But I can tell you this, I'm an expert. Because most people are violated, hurt, loved by people that they know, people that are around them. People want to believe that rape and sexual assault and all that is just that guy at the club that, bought you drinks and then, took you home. Mm-mm. Not saying that isn't what happens sometimes, but I'm saying typically whoever the perpetrator is, you know them. Think about whenever you've watched an episode of the first 48 or 2020. They always start in the home. Always. Where does this person live? Especially if they're missing. Why are they missing? Where's their vehicle? Who else lives here? Who else knows what they do every day? Like, so it's not a far-fetched idea. You don't need too much research to come to that conclusion. It's not typically some transient person that's, going from place to place, finding work on the weekends, and they don't really have a place to be. And so they're just, kind of making it on their luck. And that happens to also be a savage. Not all of them, but you get what I mean. But people think that's who it is. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Obviously, it does. But most of the time, people are getting violated right in their own home, which is why I asked the question at the beginning. Do you go to the funeral of your violator? If your brother was the violator, do you attend his funeral? Especially if other people don't know that this is who this person really is. If your dad is the perpetrator, do you go to the funeral? Because this is the thing too about sexual assault victims and the perpetrators. Many times when victims do try to, finally give up, finally get their strength to be like, okay, I'm gonna tell. Then the people that you telling on, that's Uncle so and so. So Him and his wife been together for 30 years. They're not about to split up because this girl over here said he violated her. That to me is another level of why people are like, nope, I am good to go. I ain't gonna say shit. I'm just telling you what it is. So now, because you are savage, we can't break up Aunt Linda. I'm just using names. I don't know much about Aunt Linda. And so we can't say nothing about the golden boy over here because she ain't leaving that man. And so the family reunions are always going to be weird. Crazy part is this is how people really fucking think. They would rather just let this danger to society have their way because we can't be going, we cannot have Auntie May be without her husband, honey. Because what would people think? We can't have that. I'm telling you what I know. Hey, young Reezy, Drip King. He always comes through. Love you. Yeah, so how dare we break up? We so they've been together for 35 years and they got 14 kids or 12, whatever. You get what I mean? We can't have them. And then they ain't gonna be able to come to the cookout and they ain't gonna be there for, little Sandy's birthday. How dare we do that to him? This is the nonsense that people who blame victims say to themselves. So you're gonna remember Kavanaugh? He's one of the Supreme Court justices now that Donald Trump put on the thing. Remember he was going to be appointed to the CIA, not the CIA, the to be a Supreme Court justice, which is a job you have for life, interpreting the law. I don't think you could ever lose that job for something. But anyways, yeah, there was a lady who claimed he sexually assaulted her when she was, I think, 16, 17, something like that. And so she had told her therapist and her best friend and maybe her husband or something like that. And typically people would be like, oh, it's about the money, it's about this and that. And she didn't really get raped. And if she did, or sexual assault, if she did, how could she still remember something from 35 years ago and whatever else? If you get raped, would you remember? So shut the fuck up. Sorry. That's just how I feel about it. Shut up. Just shut up. Nobody wants your opinion. Because it's so stupid. I know I'm getting angry because it's listen, it's something that happened to me on multiple occasions. But not only myself is not why I get so angry. It's all of it. And we continue to watch and say we're gonna wait and see and let justice play its role. When in reality, if you go read the fucking stats, those people do not stay in jail for very long. And if they do, whatever it is that they're in there for, it had to have been very egregious. And it probably had to be a child. Because who gives a shit about this lady that's working the corner and why she there, so she can't get raped because she work in the corner. I was talking to people like that last week. I was just like, I cannot. This is what I'm talking about. It drives me mad because I'm just like, so you don't think it's her fault. No, you think it's her fault. And she can't be raped. Somebody said that last week to me because she's choosing that life. You can't make this shit up. So she's making a bad decision to go and be a prostitute, let's say. But he isn't making a bad decision to rape her. How does that work? Somebody said that to me the other day. They were like, no, you ain't getting no sympathy from me. You choosing that work. Hell no, you can't be raped. If you choosing that lifestyle. I had to explain to this person because I cannot. I had to explain and just be like, yo, just understand this 23-year-old that you talk about, that prostitution whore, whatever you want to call her, that has gotten violated and raped and whatever, right? You would so I kind of like tricked them into this situation because I talked about sexual assault is not only grown people, right? So people can have all this empathy for the child. If it's a child that's being violated, oh my God, we can have all this empathy. I don't see any of these people any different. Doesn't matter if you're 0 You was born 5 seconds ago, or you about to die and you're 98. I feel no different about people being assaulted. Yes, obviously it's gruesome to be over here trying to have sex with a 3-month-old baby, and over here violating and taking over this person who has IDD, or they're elderly and maybe they have memory care and whatever. I don't see any of these people differently. So what this person failed to realize, I don't think until maybe I'm good at just hammering my point down sometimes, but like, I don't know that I changed him in any way, changed his opinion, and it is what it is. I don't expect for people that think like that to actually change their opinion. I always give them like a little assignment. I'm like, go home, go to your family, ask 4 people in your family, have they been sexually assaulted, see what they say. Just saying. If you want it to stop, you need to go over there and talk to your daddy, your uncle, your bestie, your friends, your grandfather, and your baby daddy. Ask them about why religiously men typically are the violators or perpetrators of sexual assault. It's just a fact that people don't like, having to be told that, but it's the truth. So just because she's 22 now and she's no longer 7, then you can violate her. This is the nonsense I'll be talking about. I cannot. Like I said, if you 14, 15, let me give you a little bit of grace. Because you're a 14, 15-year-old. You're a grown-ass man, dog. And you still talking this way? That was your mama out there? Would she still be not raped? Because she chose his life? How the hell you know she chose it? How do you know she didn't end up in this life by the age of 10? I happen to know a few people like that. So you can have all this compassion for a child, but none for that future adult. Help me make that make sense. But people will in their mind. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end it here because I am actually tired and sleepy. So I'm going to go to bed. And like I said, I might do another live tomorrow. No, I don't know. Probably next week because I think tomorrow is the 4th. Well, today is the 4th of July. So I'm sure people are going to be hanging out with their families that may not want to attend or participate. And so we'll have I'm going to try to do like a 3-part series about this. But chime down in the comments and let me know if you would be willing to go to the funeral of the person who violated you. If that person is your cousin, your friend, or your ex-friend, whatever you want to call it, your husband, your baby daddy, your wife, your dad, grandfather, cousin, would you go to that funeral? I don't know. But like I said, chime down in the comments. Let me know. Again, y'all, thank you for watching. My name's Chanel, and this is my reality. Look, I'm going to play I'm going to wear my little intro out, child. Listen, I'm paid for it, so here we are. Talk to y'all later. Have a great day.
Welcome to Chanel's reality, and this is my reality.
Bye, guys.